Roll for Crit is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Come roll with us at patreon.com/rollforcrit.
Hello there in cyberspace and YouTube land. It's Roll for Crit here, coming to you from our void that we inhabit, where sometimes the proportions of our heads and bodies may not match.
Who knows? Yes, or I guess I should say, yes.
Oh
Actually,
boy.
just got him in today.
We're already
afraid
that we're going to lose viewers, and we're breaking out the toys. That's the point of desperation.
No, that one's for me. That's 100% for me.
Well, it's not for me because I'm about to turn the stream off. But you at home shouldn't, because we are in fact here to do a live edition of our Meeple Gallery, wherein we go through viewer comments from the past couple of months. And if you're watching live right now in the chat, we've already got some people hanging out there. You please feel free to chime in with your own thoughts or questions. Just completely interrupt everything that we're doing. We're fine with that. We'll work around it as we see fit.
That's the whole point of this.
Yeah. So we have a lot to do. We can't waste any more time. We have a ton of subjects to cover from the last couple months. Let us begin with 2021, the year we are currently in. We, of course, put together our preview video of all the games we were most anticipating over the year. There are many of them. And yet, there are some that we did not cover.
All right. What did we miss?
First of all, thanks to Bradley Billingsley on the old YouTube comment section, who put together on Board Game Geek a list, a Board Game Geek list of all the games that we discussed in the video. So if you understandably don't want to watch our video, you can just go ahead and use this list, and it'll link to all their pages. That's in the comments on that video, or you can search for it and find it if you're interested in those games. But some of the ones that we didn't mention, let's see. Scott Armstrong said, you covered most of mine, but I would add Chronicles of Drunagor and Isafarian Guard. I remember those games, I believe, from the old Kickstarter. Darren Freudenthal, there's some fun ones to pronounce in this episode, I'll tell you in advance, said, looking forward to these Kickstarters delivering. Frosthaven, Marvel United, Final Girl, and Endless Winter. Also excited about Contra, War of the Ring card game, Dice Theme Park, a new Quacks of Quedlinburg expansion, and anything from the world of Unmatched. So there's some good ones. Did
we know about the Marvel Unmatched by then? I can't remember.
Oh yeah, that was in our lineup.
Definitely all right.
Yep. Marcel the Archibald says the long-awaited Solomon Kane is high on my list. Also, Halo X30 in the chat says we look like the classic painting of the two farmers with the pitchfork. I forget what.
Oh yeah, I know. That's why I'm trying to do
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have a pitchfork to hold, so.
Yeah. You don't have a pitchfork just lying around? That's not something you got? Anyway, more things, more anticipated games. The Board Game Rhino says, I'm surprised that no one is really talking about Unsettled by Orange Nebula, one of my most highly anticipated games for sure. These are all things you can be looking forward to, and write these down if you're missing them. Sarah Traeger said, excited to back the Deluxe Castles of Mad King Ludwig. That's happened now, so she's had that chance. And also excited about the new version of The Crew. Daniel Kame said, probably most excited for Marvel Champion stuff and Marvel Unmatched. Two of my favorite games giving us more Marvel goodness. But as counterpoint to that, we have Spaceboy Zero who said, Marvel is the new Cthulhu. They're oversaturating the market. I'm so bored with Marvel now, and don't give a Marvel game a second look. Where do you stand on this issue? Are you excited for more Marvel, or is it just too many?
I'm in the too many camp. The difference being that the two mentioned before, though, is Unmatches. I like the Unmatched system, so it's already because there are expansions in there. And Champions, I'm like, well, that was at least. I felt like Champions didn't come out before I had this feeling.
So it's really. I feel like Marvel United was the point where we kind of, and then I guess Unmatched was a big one too. I don't know. I'm fine with them existing.
Unmatched. Look, just because I don't like it doesn't mean it shouldn't exist. It's just it does feel like like there's a Marvel everything now.
But I would not say, I don't think anything is ever going to be the Cthulhu of board games. There are
it's hard to beat
those.
something that's in public domain.
I can still count on both hands the number of Marvel games I think that exist.
Champions, Unmatched, Smash Up, United, Legendary, Splendor, Hail
Splendor.
Hydra. I know there's more to
some of those though. I would say are like
they count to me though.
I guess like Unmatched is not. It's not, and Smash Up aren't a whole new Marvel game.
Right,
or
no, but that's the
Splendor.
thing. It's still the thing is they still count because it still feels like you're seeing Marvel on the shelf and people talking about it. That's the
Yeah, all right.
That's in. I'm not saying it just because they're standalone playing thing. I mean, it's literally just seeing you're seeing Marvel everywhere you look. Is
Fair
the
enough.
issue.
Fair enough. Yeah. Hey, as long as the games are good and they do different
that's the
things.
Thing. All it means is there's a higher bar for them to meet.
Right. Well, let's see. Some more games people are looking forward to. Damian Barber said Creature Comforts, which was on Kickstarter. I think you talked about that in one of our episodes. R. Daniel Williams said Adventure Tactics Damian's Tower and Imperium The Contention, which are coming out early this year and look good. Haven't seen either of those, so I'll have to take a look at those. Bo Brenner's mentioned one called Planet Unknown. And a couple people, I think, including the Ernie for SS, mentioned that we didn't go into depth on some come-on games that are coming out, including Massive Darkness, Zombicide 2.0, perhaps Trudvang Legends, if that makes the cut for this year, if they're able to get that out in time. But yeah, lots of come-on games, of course, always. I see in the chat where else people are also mentioning other Marvel games. There's Marvel Love Letter. There's, Marvelopoly.
I would say the Monopoly would not be one I would count for that because I'm never thinking about the Monopoly games.
Yeah.
Mostly just because, how could there be another Marvel Monopoly? It's like, what isn't there Monopoly of?
Right,
so
right.
all the rest, I think, are fair. Also because Monopoly sort of already does that.
Right.
You don't I get. You know what it is? If you think someone, let's say, was a Marvel fan or Cthulhu fan, you're not buying them the Cthulhu or Marvel Monopoly probably, unless they're just a Monopoly fan too. Like you would think about Love Letter, Smash Up, and all those. You at least think of them. They'd be considerations. I don't. At least you tell me if I'm wrong, Jonathan. You would not think Monopoly for a purchase.
No, probably not. No, that's not what I would subject someone to. So, needless to say, there are a lot of games coming out this year.
And I feel really bad because also I'm visual, so when you're reading those, I'm like, I think I remember them, but I wish I could see a box cover and be like, now I remember what that one is.
Yeah, but you can't. But you at home can Google and find out what all these are and see if you're interested in them. Hoser says Thanos Rising as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Villainous?
Yeah, Marvel Villainous now. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. You're right. I guess I do, for me, compartmentalize the additions of existing games. Like, it's valid to be sick of it because of them, but in my head, I'm like, that's the Splendor one. I don't think about it.
I will say that, sick is... I don't feel like that's the right word. It's like, I get it. Like, when I see Marvel Smash Up, I'm like, I get it. It's Marvel characters. I'm not like, Marvel, because I've seen them enough. But I'm still like, it's Smash Up, so I'll get it and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Especially if Unmatched, where I'm like, where they actually chose more interesting characters, not more but less represented characters, I guess would be the proper.
Yeah. Halo says he's looking forward to board game meetups and conventions in 2021. So that's the thing we're all hopefully looking forward to.
Oh, we can only dream.
Sean asked if we got the Stardew Valley board game. He purchased his just in time. Yes, Sean. We'll be talking a little bit about that next week. But
really, I was like, I remember we were just like, let's double check stuff for some news. Spoilers. We have a news video coming up.
You really spoiled it.
Yeah. Anyways, when I read, I'm like, oh, they're talking about all the Kickstarters we were talking about before. What's this Stardew Valley? And you're like, oh wow, Stardew. I guess it's coming to Kickstarter. No, wait, you can buy it now. I was like, really? Buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, so Captain Ron says waiting for reviews. So hopefully, maybe we'll let you know what we think of Stardew Valley in the near future. You can decide if it's worth your money when you can buy it again, because it's sold out now. All right, more games that were announced now for 2021, or at least Kickstarters or something. One of them was Slay the Spire, the adaptation of the video game. That's a deck building roguelike game. And there's some, people have different opinions on this one. Matt D says there are plenty of mechanics in Slay the Spire that would be really fiddly to imitate in real life, so I imagine they will make some big changes. With different playable characters, I have faith that Megacrit knows how to balance a PvE game to be fun with varied playstyles. I have no doubt they'll manage that with this board game if they are directly involved. I also think making it co-op makes the game worthwhile, because that will be a different experience from the original video game. So that's that. But some people say, no, leave it as it is. Vlad65 says, even though it uses deck building mechanics, Slay the Spire is perfect as a digital game. It does all the complicated calculations, keeps track of bonuses, etc., with visuals and good sound and music. Can't see how it'll be worthwhile in physical form unless they do multiplayer very well. And Patrick Brophy also says, I feel a board game version can only disappoint. The video game is already perfect. I'll be very interested to see more about it when the Kickstarter shows up. I know we haven't played Slay the Spire. I've seen a bunch of Slay the Spire, other people playing it. But I think that's something we can kind of just generally relate to, the idea of, especially in this instance, it is weird because it's so close to a board game already.
Right.
I mean, what do you think about adapting something like that? Is it just too thin a line? Or could they, do you think, I guess the question is, do you think they have to do something very different? Or would you be fine with, it's the same, but now I get to hold a card, so it feels different.
Slay this. It's just single player, right?
Yeah,
or is
the video game is just solo. Yeah.
Well, I think that would be where I think is a reasonable to make another version. It's because, like, all right, what would a multiplayer experience of this be like? That being said, depending on the game, especially something that has a lot of tracking of data, that you never realize what goes behind the scenes until probably you've played something like Dungeons and Dragons and you're the GM. You're like, I have to keep track of this person's health, these 5 names. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes video games that you don't think about.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much of that will be able to translate reasonably well. Like maybe, it's just going to be a few dials or something to keep track.
Yeah.
Or are they going to find a way to just throw that out, which could be good or bad? I don't know.
I mean, we've seen the Frostpunk board game, which seems like it's really going all in, and you're kind of managing a lot of the stuff that the video game did for you. And then sometimes you get the opposite, where you look at something like Sentinels of the Multiverse, which kind of worked great as a video game because in the real game there is a lot of that tracking stuff. And I'm glad I brought up... Yes.
I was just going to say, there are a lot of board games that we have seen digital adaptations or even apps for, that just because that adds some of the tracking and stuff for us, we're just like, oh my God, this is so much nicer. We're not spending 5 minutes on cleanup.
Yeah. Anyway, but like I said, I'm glad I brought up Sentinels of the Multiverse because it's our next topic.
Oh.
Yeah, so thanks to me for making that happen. It was announced that there's going to be a second edition of Sentinels of the Multiverse. Now, this is maybe a little surprising because they had their giant ending of it with all they finished with the expansions.
Oblivion or something like that?
Yes, it was Oblivion, but with an A, Oblivion. And now they're coming back with a brand new version of it. And people were real mixed on this one. A lot of people weren't into it. Some people were. Zurl13L or Zur13L said, I loved Sentinels. It had tons of soul, but it was far too fiddly and didn't work properly at certain player counts, so I'm psyched for a redo. But a lot of people didn't feel the same way. Jonathan Jones commented and said that apparently, according to a playtester, every deck in the game has art ranging from that hero or villain's or whatever's first appearance up until the modern age. So we saw some of the art, and it looks like they're really going for different decades. So there's 50s comics, 60s, and 70s comics. And Jonathan says that if the base box has more than just the 50s style art, he'd be interested in buying it. Otherwise, it's a hard pass. But it sounds like maybe there will be a range, so you're not just going to be like stuck with one decade, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Hoser40K said has a complete Sentinels collection. Likes the original artwork and card layout better than the new. The new looks like it's trying to mimic Marvel Champions. So, not interested in that one.
Or maybe that means they can cross over.
Oh, man. I hope not. I mean, Marvel Champions is pretty close to Sentinels in some ways.
You know, you just want to be able to play with the Wraith and Quicksilver, and let's throw in Bunker while we're at it.
Yeah, why not? Terry Provincial says, I'm a big Sentinels fan, not going to back the new version, already have the original set. Would be silly to replace it just because of a little bit more streamlined version, and I don't really like the new art. And Clint Walker's also another one. I love Sentinels. Will not be getting the new set. Don't like the new look at all. I love the idea of accurate vintage comic style art, but the graphic design elements don't match. The choice of fonts feels anachronistic, and would really have to consider it a great deal because, again, he has all the original stuff. I think I'm in the minority, it sounds like, on this one because I think the new look is fantastic, and I think it looks way better than the original game did. I understand if you already have every expansion, yeah, that's going to be a hard sell, but I really like the way the new game looks, and I hope it's really streamlined and more, makes those things easier to play. I don't know.
I cannot. I'm trying to quickly see if I can find some images of the new edition.
Yeah, you don't remember?
I really cannot. No, I literally cannot remember. I tend to.
Guys, we're we do a lot over here at Roll for Crit, and going through it looked like classic. Yeah. It looked like Superman art. It looked like professional. Vintage comic art.
I think the problem is searching second edition. There was a second something, but it was part of the old one. So I'll wait until we do a Kickstarter on it.
I think it's called Ultimate Edition. Didn't we already do it, or was that just in a news announcement? It's not up yet.
I thought it was a news announcement.
I don't know. We can't keep track anywhere. But I mean, what's your general? I mean, I think I remember you were a little less hot on it than I am. I think you liked the original.
I know the art felt a little bit, but I just, like I said, I understand completely, like, buying everything over again that isn't significant.
Oh yeah, why? I would never think. No one wants to do that.
And I guess what I would want to see more from, like, decades, like, I love the idea of different decades, but I almost would rather it be like a promo card of, like, each character. So, like, I'm playing with the 1950s Wraith. It's not different, but it's that character looking like from that era,
But I kind of like the, thinking about it. I mean, again, we'll just use Marvel. We don't want another Marvel game, but if I think it would be kind of cool if, say, Marvel Champions was your Spider-Man deck. It's like some cards are Spider-Man, like if it was just all comic art, for instance, and it's like this one is him from the 50s or 60s, I guess, Spider-Man. This one's like a 90s version. I mean, maybe I guess the risk is that they are incongruous and don't like mesh together, but something about that seems cool to me to have those all in one deck.
I guess because it's different, I almost want to match and let's take Spider-Man, for example. I almost want, if you're going to I want to just make a Spider-Man 60s or noir. Like, that's a whole separate hero.
Yeah.
Like, but
it's a different thing too, because
because that's I'm literally saying make something new. Which
they have actual history. Yeah, this is supposed to be like, look at the range of whatever comics. Anyway, so that's Sentinels. People are split. Another game is getting a new edition. That's Great Western Trail, and we'll see if people are more positive about this one. Super Mega Vega said, huge Great Western Trail fan. I have the game with the expansion and every kind of upgrade I could get for it, but very curious about all three versions coming out. I am positive I will buy all three, even though that's probably not necessary with all the money I put in the first edition. So some people are like, no, I love it. Let's go all in.
To be fair, comparing, because I assume you put this sort of next to each other for a reason, Sentinels is 100% already in existence. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the two new things, the Argentina are new. So it's almost like if you're getting those, you want the rest to match.
Maybe. I mean, maybe. I guess. If you have that sort of neuroses like we do.
I do.
And Captain Ron said, sold my original copy of Great Western Trail. Enjoyed my plays of it, but didn't see myself pulling it out over many others. But after seeing the new boxes, I know I will be buying again. Yeah, hopes that the designer updates Maracaibo as well. So there you go. Oh, Captain Ron is in the chat right now. He just posted what I just read, not knowing that I was going to read it. Good.
They're that good.
Where I'm here for you, Captain Ron. I've got you covered, my friend. All right. Moving on. Not a new edition, but there was a new expansion announced for Disney Villainous. Not the Marvel one, the Disney one, which was called, what, Despicable something? Despicable
I just know
Plans?
it had Gaston on it.
That's right. Gaston, yeah, was on the cover, and it's along with Black Cauldron, and what was the third movie in there?
I can't remember. I think it was Cinderella. I think it was the
Cinderella, the evil stepmother. That's
yeah.
right. And I jokingly said, I think they're running out of. I think they're just running out of villains, and wouldn't you know it, the comment section decided to say, "No, you're wrong." And a lot of people listed a bunch. I have one comment from Eric Vliegenthart, who listed a bunch that I saw. Frollo from Hunchback, Shere Khan from Jungle Book, Shan Yu from Mulan, Oogie Boogie, Nightmare Before Christmas, John Ratcliffe from Pocahontas, people from Treasure Planet, Atlantis, Lilo and Stitch, Wreck-It Ralph.
We got to make a poker rap of this or something.
So clearly there are a lot of villains they could still use. I will still say, I did forget about Shere Khan. He's pretty big. But I would say outside of Shere Khan and you could maybe Oogie Boogie and maybe Frollo from Hunchback. Like, I do think they've used up most of their headliners. The ones that could be on the front.
Maybe these three, the exact size of
an
expansion.
All right, okay. Well, no, but I don't think, I'm saying one of those three maybe could be because they never pair the big guns together.
Right. No, I just like the three. No. Well, I will say Oogie Boogie's always weird. I feel like Nightmare Before Christmas is always such a weird how they like Disney. It's not like Black Cauldron was a big surprise because they don't acknowledge it. But like, I always feel like Night Before Christmas is like, we love it. Then we don't talk about it. Like, it just seems like...
Oh, they sure love it for merchandise. I mean...
Right, but it's almost separate from Disney, I feel. I feel like its own thing, it almost feels like.
Yeah, I mean, it's in Kingdom Hearts and stuff.
That's true. But, there is one villain we didn't think about. People who keep thinking live-action versions are good ideas.
Yes, the true villain is Bob Iger. Or I liked this one. Scythe Noir commented, "The true villain of Frozen, that damn song." I just that sounded like a Norm Macdonald joke to me, so I presented it as such. And Christopher Nema said, "I think they should pause on villainous content and focus on a storage solution." How about you think do you think they will do that for villainous?
I don't think Ravensburger has done a storage.
But do they even have any other franchises that merit it though? This might be the only one.
Yeah, not only would this be the only one. Remember, a lot of I'd say Ravensburger games in general, but definitely the villainous line, are like targeted for to be in Targets and Walmarts. Those aren't places you find your collector's box, because you just need one person to buy it thinking they're getting a game and it doesn't have a game in it.
Well, I could see them only selling it on their site or something.
That is true. Something like a convention site exclusive would be, I think, a good idea.
It is more
It does limit how much space. I would say it'd be more likely if they didn't have the figures. That's really, I think, the hard thing to do. You could easily make a custom box that fits, I could probably make it double the number of expansions without thinking too hard. The figures are where it's going to be annoying. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's something that Smash Up, for instance, does not have to worry about. It's just cards. Nishan Kumar in the chat says Shere Khan is terrifying. Shere is Hindi for lion. Interesting fact. Didn't know. You learn something new watching Roll for Crit. So we're talking about some games that are coming out in 2021. How about some games that are not coming out in 2021?
Which may still include games from our original list.
Starting with Metal Gear Solid, the board game, which was canceled.
Yeah.
We reported on that from IDW.
Stunk.
And let's see. Ernie says, I pre-ordered 2 copies of Metal Gear Solid. One was going to be a Christmas gift for last year, and the other I was going to play. Now I got to think of 2 Christmas gifts this year. so that's, some people are struggling. Captain Ron, again, I got a comment from Captain Ron, says he would like to see them make Metal Gear without minis and would buy. Not a fan of minis and typically look past games that include them.
I mean, like I said in the video, I'm like, the only reason I wanted minis in this because, like, I want that Metal Gear X.
You want to play with that? You want to play with them, yeah, just for fun. And we were talking about how maybe, you know, because we're thinking maybe we'll see this without the IP is possible. Mm-hmm. Scott, I like some of these suggestions. Scott Armstrong said if they can't get Metal Gear, they should try for Splinter Cell. Could be good. Billy Spencer said Dishonored or The Last of Us could be possible reskins.
Well, there already is a Last of Us game. I forget who's doing it. Is it?
Come on,
yeah, Come on, yeah,
they're doing it.
I definitely love Dishonored. That one could be really cool because there's plenty of. I did not play 2, but I played 1, and I'm sure you can come up with your own like level up system for a bunch of the cool abilities in that. And because you're allowed to, because it has, I don't know if it's official, but quote unquote magic. You could do some more weirder stuff in scenarios. You know, what magic do you use for? Cut corners.
Well, Shane Anigan says, I had no interest in the Metal Gear Solid board game because I'm not into that IP, but slap a generic fantasy theme on the system and I'll probably get it if it plays well and has a solo mode. So he wants to just go the complete other direction. As much as these other ideas would probably work if necessary.
Anvil Solid. Behold thy solid snake.
For me, I think the reason I was interested in it was I think Metal Gear Solid is cool. And I also feel like, yeah, you could definitely, like Last of Us, Dishonored, you could use the same system, but there are some things that are very specifically Metal Gear that I don't think you could translate to another IP. You'd have to make up your own IP, I think, an original IP, if you couldn't get Metal Gear.
You know what we need? We need Kojima to pick up and make his own Metal Gear board game somehow. That, secretly you take the insert out and be like, look on the back and find the code to enter the computer to find like box 2 and something.
The game would weigh 50 pounds and the 50 pounds would be the storybook that comes with it.
Yeah, it would be no miniatures.
It would put Midara to shame with its 20-minute YouTube cutscenes.
Oh my god. You have to go and watch YouTube.
But I would buy it and I would love it.
In a heartbeat.
So that's Metal Gear. Hello to AJN in the chat and anyone else who's joining us right now. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to throw them in there, pepper them in as we continue. Another game that is no longer going to see releases is, of course, Legend of the Five Rings from Fantasy Flight. They're ending that LCG. And, oh boy, people had a lot of thoughts about this one. We were kind of speculating as to what might the reasons be that led to its demise, as it were. And we heard from some people who were active players of the game, which we were not.
Well, I'd hope there still are.
Yes, that's right. Steel Fur said everything in the game is far from complete. They moved most of the designers off a year and a half in. We were left with one who couldn't do the job alone. No rotation. Basically, it was mismanaged entirely and probably too complex from the start, so it was doomed to fail in their view. Ending now, it is in a messy state and probably the worst meta they have. I
was really afraid, yeah.
At least one person not happy with it, and there's more. So Michael Johnson says, aside from its complexity, another issue that didn't do the game any favors was Fantasy Flight's stubborn adherence to the we must produce 6 packs per cycle model. Part of the appeal of a fixed, expandable model is that it doesn't need to rely on commons bloat to artificially elevate the value and rarity of cards in the pool. However, they couldn't reliably produce a cycle's worth of interesting cards, so inevitably it would end up feeling like there were throwaway cards or unnecessary commons.
I'm surprised because I feel like one of the ways you always combat this in every other trading card game is usually you start having other modes like common only or pauper or like drafting, something that makes it so that card that stinks in the standard strong meta shines better over here. But yeah,
Interesting.
I definitely agree. The six pack works very well with the cooperative ones like Arkham because you're making a story, you're doing story beats. It's a lot easier to balance a story in PvE because also you're not playing against people versus a competitive scene. That would have made more sense to be instead of cycles just do pack like Marvel isn't really six cycles. I don't think. Is it?
No, not they don't like at least not internally. Maybe they have something like that, but they don't market it that way.
Yeah, I think the Five Rings. It's like again. Remember, it's been a while. I think it was actually like this is the 6 cycles in which the Scorpions uprise. Like there actually was
There was something
thing that tried to connect them when. And look, I mean, like Magic does packs that have a story, but that's one big set. So maybe they should have just divide it like that. And like if they made enough cards for 3 packs, well, that's the cycle. That probably would have definitely helped a lot in the design space.
Yeah, well, more troubles. Travis Berg said, I loved playing Legend of the Five Rings competitively, but the different power creeps and cards that didn't go through proper testing were the issues that killed the game. So that's an issue. Brian Andrews says, I think the problem with Legends of the Five Rings is there doesn't seem to be a strong entertainment franchise underpinning it. Much as I resist games coming off franchises like Marvel and Lord of the Rings, they have a very accessible player buy-in. Most people have seen one of the movies. They can grasp those games and are more likely to pick them up in the store. I think that 5 or 10 years ago, people were more open to the worlds that just exist for a game, but now I think people are more franchise-driven. You think that's true?
Well, actually, yeah. You know what? Because I think it's a safe argument. In fact, I've heard this argument before, like, I always bring up how Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon are like the 3 pillars of TCG. Yeah. Magic definitely is there because it was first. I mean, it's a good game too, but being first makes a significant difference. I think Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, because they had the show backing and all that, are one of the reasons why they've stood tall. And that has helped quite a bit because, other people like Magic, I mean, they're starting to do it now, but like, Jonathan, if you didn't know anyone who plays Magic, like, would you think you sort of have to, it's almost like a club where like you have someone who already plays has to let you in.
Right.
You get Pokemon, you just turn on the TV like, oh my God, I love Charizard. You find out there's a card game with him. Like, I'm going to make a Charizard deck until you find out that all the packs are sold out because of scalpers and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that, and the sad thing is, I think you totally could make a Legends of the Five Rings. There is an interesting world in there.
They've got books.
They do have books, but
I mean, they have a role play. Technically, it is based on an existing franchise, but no, yes.
It's not like
It's not Marvel. I mean, I would like to believe that there is still room for. I think there is definitely still an appeal to people of new IPs and board games. I think the harder sell is when it's an ongoing game.
Yes, I was gonna say. I think it's a lot easier if it's a one-time 1, 2. Like, I think it would have done very well as like they have the Castle game. I forget the name. They had another like spin-off game. I think it probably, I mean, you need some tweaking, but something similar to Battlestar because I know there is a lot of political intrigue in it.
Well,
I like I said, also TV shows and stuff. But yeah, I do think that really helps a card. It doesn't guarantee it. I mean, Transformer card game died. WoW's died. I mean, there's plenty of other properties that have existed before in card games and didn't make it.
Yeah, Kenny Tran said it would be a dream to see Fantasy Flight produce a Legend of the Five Rings co-op LCG. The world of Rokugan has so much storytelling potential. I think it would be perfect for a campaign-style co-op card game. Like they said, they're in the works on new games, so we may see those before the year is up. We might at least hear news of them. Mm-hmm. And maybe they are doing some of this stuff. Psychic Lord said, Fantasy Flight risks people not wanting to invest in their future card games. What is the point if they shut them all down or make it nearly impossible to obtain the packs? Do you think that's something that could really discourage people like this? And they kind of stopped with Lord of the Rings.
I'm pretty sure you heard me complain about how the starter decks from Arkham Horror were impossible to get.
But yeah, I mean, that definitely could discourage people. Yeah, I can see it.
Not being able to buy something, especially when it is a card game, be it the TCG or LCG, is extremely disheartening. You don't want to have to be like, all right, so the new set comes out this day. If I take a break from work at exactly 10:05, I might be able to help on amp.
Well, what about ignoring that? What about just the threat that this might end in a couple years? Does that make you not want to buy something if you don't think it's going to last for a long time?
It depends on the card game. I would say it's a lot harder for something like Legend of the Five Rings, which is competitive, because a lot of that requires a base to grow. I mean, we were just talking about it a while ago, not here, sort of unrelated, but like Dota, the new remake, and someone mentioned how like
Diablo,
because it's online, it needs the
Diablo
player base. Diablo, wow.
Yeah, okay. Just
Diablo, I'm sorry, but like the player base is so significant for anything like that. Like, for example, if they ended Arkham Horror, like this is the last cycle, little sad. Yeah, I would be. But also I'm like, well, I have the complete stories. I can play through them again. It really depends on the kind of, and I think that is sort of, and it really sucks for people who like competitive games out there. I think Fantasy Flight has noticed that. Like, I do think Legend of the Five Rings as a cooperative game is a reasonable guess.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason I think Lord of the Rings they even say they ended Lord of the Rings. They said they put on hiatus, remember, unlike the rest. I think it's just because it's, they've mined that.
Yeah, for me, I definitely am like, as long as the game is fun, it doesn't scare me that they're going to stop making it, because I feel like that's more important if you actually are, like, you like going to tournaments and stuff like that. Like, I'm like, you know what, I have whatever they made, I could still play with that, it still works, I'm still happy with what I got. But I can see how for some people it would maybe turn them off.
Well, in particular, think about with tournaments and stuff, if you're like, all right, I wanted to make a deck around the Red Samurai or whatever, that requires the Mythos Pack 87, which you can't find anywhere.
Right. Well, yes. I mean,
I mean, not fine. I mean, like, after the game's been ended.
Right. I'm assuming, I'm talking about, like, before it's ended, that you're, like, nervous to buy it just because you think it might end. That's what I was talking about.
I mean, I really liked the Digimon TCG, but I gave it a much more negative review than I think I should have in my video, because I was burned on the Transformers. Like, I like this. It's going to stop being printed and stuff. Little did I know I was not even be able to get it to start with.
But there's still hope, guys. There's always still hope, because as Schlatta said, for those of you who want more Legend of the Five Rings LCG, keep an eye out, as we are organizing a community continuation similar to Project Nisei that they do for Android Netrunner. So
yeah, I mean, God bless these communities. Yeah, like Netrunner, like I said, Transformer. There are people who are like, you know what? No, we're still gonna do stuff. And it is not like, oh, we just put a card with some bad art. They really go on and come up with some really cool stuff. Like, they might even come up with alternate modes of like a 1v all kind of thing. So
yeah,
definitely keep an eye out on the subreddit and stuff. I'm sure they'll point out where and when that kind of things will go down.
A lot of people were also saying, like, oh man, co-op and solo mode coming with this new expansion. If that were there before, I would have played this game. Why wasn't that from the start? And then maybe this would have done better. I'm seeing a lot of chats, Fantasy Flight related. Jim Souders saying it seems like every time they post something new, it's the beginning of the end. Yeah, we've been watching them for a while. Kind of, it's a shame. Sean is looking for the Star Wars Outer Rim expansion, as are we all. Jim Souter thinks that we're not going to get much more after Descent and the new Arkham Horror expansion. Maybe this, who knows? We'll see. And Cards and Dices asked what our opinion is on the Resident Evil board games. Unfortunately, still haven't had the chance to actually play.
I played the deck building game.
The deck building game, but I assume they're referring to the Steamforged.
Well, yeah. I don't think anyone remembers the deck building game.
I played the deck building game too. We both played that. It's fine. It's fine.
Well, remember, it was released way before, I think, the start of, you could say, the new golden age of board games. Like,
sure, that's fine. Yeah, I feel no need to qualify that statement.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I've heard very mixed. I've always been afraid to buy into the Resident Evil board game because it's really expensive.
That's another reason why I hate those heavy miniatures games. It's like, I like the property, but...
And I've heard, like, people are like, oh, it's really good maybe if you add this expansion, and there's printing issues, and, Steamforged is kind of a thing. Jim also said bought in and got burnt on a lot of FFG LCGs, so there you go. Mark is in the chat, says needs to show us both the Song of Ice and Fire war game. Lots of big rule changes coming. And we know his personal favorite is the Game of Thrones card game, so LCGs. You mentioned it, Magic the Gathering. Let's talk about it because just the other day we learned that they are going to be adding Lord of the Rings and Warhammer 40k cards to the pool of available Magic stuff you can buy. Big licenses officially as part of the game. People commented, as they are wont to do. Refresh Damon said, I'm all right with them making these, but I don't want these cards in any regular Magic format. They should make an anything goes format for these not in-universe cards. And Zur13L kind of had a similar thought, said they should do what Level 99 does with Exceed and just make a self-contained run of this IP or that IP. I will never go back to buying booster packs and etc., but a self-contained Warhammer card game with Magic the Gathering rules, I'm in.
Well, the Warhammer one, you're in luck. There's been a little bit more that have been released, and I can't remember if not I read it in time for the video. But the Warhammer ones are going to be commander decks, so those will not be packs. It sounds like those would be set decks you can buy.
There you go. They got what they wanted.
Terrifying, because as a commander player recently, I've seen what they've done, how they've printed things and shaped the universe. The Lord of the Rings will be booster packs, which I assume means the entire. There's like 5 different versions of booster packs I'm not going to get into for your sake, Jonathan. But they did say these cards are not available in standard, which is their rotating format. However, that's all I heard clarifying. So I assume it still means modern, legacy, pauper, vintage, commander, two-headed giant, all the other ones, they're fair game. So it's like, you sort of got your wish.
Yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Now, of course, different licenses. This brings up the question of what other licenses might come into Magic,
That's my new video.
As well as what might this mean for licenses like Lord of the Rings. Sky Silvercan Reed said, I like the idea of D&D in Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, but I think they would have to release like an unset. Am I saying that right?
Yes, unset pretty much. It's a silver border, which technically means it's illegal in all sets. Like it's just for fun.
If they do make a set featuring D&D or Lord of the Rings or 40k, I would definitely collect them. Even though I haven't played or collected Magic products for the past 4 or 5 years. So bringing in some other people.
Well, part of the reason I said, like, people are arguing, like, one, I don't want to, this is not Magic. I shouldn't have to see a guy with a gun in it. There are, I think, 2 cards with gun art, if I recall correctly, like, entire Magic's history. Other argument,
and
though,
one of them is Frodo.
The other argument, is like, oh, well, people who have been scared or not used to interesting Magic would be excited to jump in at this point. So it is like, you don't want to gatekeep, but like, you wonder, like, is it, it's like I said, I just found it weird, the idea of like, I play Gandalf and equip him with Space Marine gun. And I'm going to have him soul bond with Twilight Sparkle, that kind of stuff.
I never want to hear that sentence again. But Lord of the Rings, moving outside of that, what does it mean for them? I guess Scott Armstrong said Lord of the Rings RPG from Wizards of the Coast seems unlikely. I guess is this something you brought up?
I brought up what I'd be excited about is them, since I assume they have these properties, is to bring them into D&D and other games.
Well, he says...
I did say the One Ring just came out.
Right, since the One Ring, Free League has the rights, and they also did mention in that Kickstarter that they are personally working on a new edition that uses the 5e rules. So it does seem like
right. Well, that was actually
unnecessary.
Part of my argument was, Wizards of the Coast is probably seeing all these fan-made or Kickstarters of like 5e rules, and they're like, you know what? Why do we make people pay us for it?
Always good to get paid for it. But Manuel Lopez wants to know, how will this impact the LCG of Lord of the Rings? I know it's currently on hiatus, but what about the licensing for the IP card game? Does this mean Fantasy Flight won't be able to expand it moving forward? I would guess that it's 2 separate. I think they're allowed to do both, probably, because it's not like Amazon,
right?
only has the rights.
We've seen that with DC and Star Wars and stuff. We've seen other companies like Fantasy Flight literally we made this game, but it has miniatures in it, so it's okay.
Right, right. You find the loopholes.
They also, they mentioned, speaking of the company, Wizards of the Coast, when they said we're not printing Android Netrunner anymore because we lost the rights. So if they lost the rights to Lord of the Rings, I think they would have said it. At least I'd hope.
Yeah, I think I'm guessing it'll be fine, but we'll find out. And now here's a question I'm sure you have an opinion on. Joe Aguayo said, not a Magic player myself, but do you guys think Magic will ever go digital only? You think?
I'm going to just say... okay. I don't think so, personally. I think there's people like me who have too big of a paper collection also, especially with Commanders. I don't know if it is but I'm pretty sure it's close to one of the most popular formats, like played formats right now. And for a huge chunk of that base, people who play Commander are sort of like, it's more like how we have a game night. It's getting friends together.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of them they have found ways to play over camera during this current time period when we're all stuck inside. But given the choice, I'm pretty sure a good chunk of them would much rather sit down in person.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just now whether we're going to begrudgingly do it is another question. Wizards may make it a pain for us, but we're still going to do it.
I think that Magic will die before it goes digital only. I think there will either be physical Magic or there will be no Magic. Unless then after that someone revives it. Somehow.
That is actually, I don't think it actually happened, but someone talked about how Hearthstone, how you can, when they change cards, they can literally update the programming because it's only digital.
Yeah, it's a big
advantage.
So it
said, why don't they do that for Magic's Arena and stuff? And then someone but then you're literally making now two separate games, but that share a couple pieces. And that's that was a really weird argument and interesting. What would happen if that occurred? We actually saw a weird splintering of two mirrored products that are really close, but because 10 cards are different, they're separate games.
Yeah, could. I'd be interested in it. All right, let's move on to some games that we actually reviewed and got to play. One of those was Cubitos, which is the dice rolling push your luck racing game from AEG. We both really liked Cubitos.
Yeah.
We compared it to a few different games. Manuel Lopez said, I'm surprised you compared this to Clank or Formula D. I also said Camel Up, but not to Quacks of Quedlinburg, because it's almost the exact same game to me. Think about it. No real punishment if you go bust. Dice/tokens, bag construction with different powers, catch-up mechanics, and plenty of space for expansions. I loved Quacks of Quedlinburg, but more often than not, it was clear who the winner would be in the middle of the game because the catch-up mechanic was unrewarding. I don't see why this would fit in my collection, as I already have Quacks. Definitely an oversight.
I completely, now I'm I guess, it's just that you're on different tracks, so I don't think of it the same.
For me, it was because the theme is a racing game. That's what I think of first and foremost. So I was thinking of other racing games. But if you take that element away, yes, the minute.
Even then, Quacks sort of has. It's not the same kind of racing.
You're not literally racing.
Yeah, that's why it's you have your own thing, and it's definitely one we need to play more. But
fun game. So that's a fun comparison. Now that's Cubitos. Let's move on to X-Men Mutant Insurrection.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard about this one. Fantasy Flight's, or back to Fantasy Flight again, everybody. Dice rolling.
Look, they might not be making many games, but people still want to hear about those games.
But apparently, maybe not so much this one. We were pretty relatively overall positive about the game, and a bunch of people were wanted us to be meaner to it, I guess. They did, even though, the game, I think it actually comes out today. So no people who hadn't played it are just going, why didn't you? Apparently there was a Dice Tower review where four different reviewers all played separately and they all gave it terrible scores. They all hated it. So people are like, well, what's going on over here? Anyway.
I guess we just had a...
Let's hear what the comments have to say, and then we can defend ourselves, or the game if need be. Fruit Punchy said, I love X-Men, but this game design, aesthetics, and production value make it look cheaper than Elder Sign and Sentinels of the Multiverse. For some reason, out of nowhere, a jab at Sentinels of the Multiverse. I would rather play the latter two for the visuals and gameplay. The mission and relationship cards are bland and not engaging enough. X-Men is famous for its punchy comic artwork. They should add those on each cards. They could also add more synergies between X-Men. How could Wolverine do fastball special with Storm? If it's a signature move with Colossus. I think he's saying they'd have paired up things.
Yeah.
Also, the Wolverine artwork is awkward. Overall, low effort from Fantasy Flight to cash in on the X-Men franchise. And generally, a lot of the comments kind of had things like that. I don't know. A lot of these issues, like the artwork and the production. Another thing I saw other people, I don't think in our comment section, I saw people complaining that there weren't enough standees in it. That because they only include 6 standees, so when you play a new game, you would have to take them off and put a new character in it. And I was just kind of like, I guess the argument is you might damage the base when you do that so often. Mm-hmm. I don't really care. It just doesn't seem like a big deal to me.
I definitely like looking. I could see like, yeah, I think it could have been cool if the bonds and relationships had art on them. I felt like I don't know. I guess I never thought the art felt too lazy to me. Like all the, I guess you could art. Yeah, I mean the art on the missions that aren't a villain weren't that, but I guess I'm like.
I thought it looked good. I think the game looks good. It's nothing,
yeah, it didn't cross my mind of
nothing like, mind-blowing, but it was just like, that's an X-Men, all right.
And the special thing, I just imagine that would be like, are you playing with Colossus? Like playing with, if you get very specific, then that's a...
Yeah, I believe me, I love the idea of specific hero combos. I do think that is awesome. Maybe in an expansion that's something they could add. But I didn't feel too disappointed it wasn't in there. Fruit Punchy, by the way, is in the chat right now, so hey, Fruit Punchy.
I don't mean to be mean.
No, we're not being mean. No, who cares? Anyway, thanks for watching. Aaron Smith said, I would want to replace the standees with HeroClix X-Men figures.
That is a very good idea.
I hope this does well enough that it gets some expansions. There are lots of stories to tell and characters to use. If I had to guess, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver will be first because of WandaVision. And, we talked about Nightcrawler. Brian Wells said, no Nightcrawler? He better bamf dice from one mission to another when they introduce his character in an expansion. We were saying, I do think they included a lot of the big characters, but I'd go in for a Nightcrawler, Quicksilver, and Wanda expansion, if a few more in there. There's still some heavy hitters they could add that I'd be excited to try. And Ernie coming back at us with another comment said he pre-ordered it, but is waiting to get it. It says, not in love with Elder Sign, but it's easy to get to the table and easy to teach. Disappointed, same thing, that they don't have any team-up special cards. Hopes to see Deadpool and X-23 among others in the expansion. So there's X-23 isn't it?
Yeah, she is in it.
X-23 is
Deadpool's not though. I could definitely see Deadpool being both a hero and a villain.
But yeah, I think we were perfectly fair towards the game. I think people are. I think people right now just have a very negative opinion of Fantasy Flight, and they really are excited to dunk on them.
I feel like you're usually fine with dunking on them,
Yeah, I mean, but I really love their games. I don't love their structure as a company always, but I traditionally...
You don't love their rule books, I can definitely say that.
Yeah, I mean, I have issues sometimes with their rule books or with their inserts, but... I think the games are solid, and X-Men Mutant Insurrection, I think we said it in the review, I think we were perfectly fair. Is it anything great? No, it's not great. But if you like X-Men and you're okay with a dice rolling game, it's a solid game. I think you'll have a good time on it. I don't know. Jared Hamby asked if it's only Phoenix and no Jean Grey. Yeah, that's right. Only Phoenix is playable in the base, not Jean Grey. Don't know if that makes a difference to anybody out there.
Well, it does mean that she can go evil.
Yeah, possibly. Well, a difference in terms of whether you buy it or not.
Oh.
Another big game we reviewed, Red Rising. new from Stonemaier Games. This is based on the book series, and we spent a good amount of time talking about the game as well as how the theme was implemented compared to those books, which are big sci-fi novels. People had thoughts. Billy Indiana said, I'm very excited for this game. Really enjoy Fantasy Realms, and this seems to crank that game up to another level. I know that's one they compared it to themselves and trying to tell people what the game was like when it was announced. Stephen Clark says, announcement of the game got me to read the book series. Currently in book number 2, this game seems right up my alley, and it's been fun to see the cards with the characters on them. Same boat that I was in and had a lot of fun with it. But some people disappointed. MJR League Infidel, I don't know how to say some of these names, said it is straight up disappointing as a fan. I'm glad there's a Red Rising game. I'm glad Stonemaier made this game. I'm sure it will be good, and I'm looking forward to it, but it's not the Red Rising game I wanted.
Well, that matches perfectly with what you said.
Pretty much. I mean, I wouldn't say that I...
Not exactly, but I mean, you were definitely like...
I would, it is pretty much. It is pretty much how I feel. We also maybe lamented a little bit, I guess along those lines, just saying, like, this theme might lend itself to a deeper, more quote-unquote hardcore experience. Raphael said, it's a Stonemaier game. They usually make accessible games. A 4X or political negotiation game is not in their ballpark, to which Tuan Ngo replied and said agreed. Tapestry is a light Civ-themed game. Scythe is a light 3.5X game. It helps knowing what you're getting into.
That is...
Yeah, I mean, I think we have the same response to this. I would consider both Tapestry and Scythe to be heavy games.
Oh no, I mean that wasn't exactly what I was going to say. I mean they're heavy in the sense of long and
they're complex.
To do, but
I think they're hard to teach.
No, but I mean compare
Pendulum as well.
Like what they said, like for example, Scythe being like a 4X game. Like we've mentioned this before, how we're like most 4X games we don't love nearly as much as Scythe. Like they do something to it, I think that makes it more accessible. Like, I don't feel like it's as punishing. I think that's really the spirit of it, like what they're talking about here. At least that's what I was getting from it.
He called them both light.
Light comparative to their, I think that's what I meant. Like, it's light comparative to
maybe
other games with that title.
But I
don't think
disagree.
they mean light as in like, it's like Go Fish.
I don't know. I think they do a little bit. I mean, the original commenter, Raphael, said they make accessible games. A 4X is not in their ballpark. And I'm like, that Scythe is that. To me, Wingspan and Red Rising now a little bit are the outliers. I think most of Stonemaier's games are complicated, heavy games. Like, I think this is a case of people being jaded by the how heavy the games they play are, which sometimes we've been accused of in certain instances, I think. But I don't know.
I guess... I like, to me, I do see that as like there are, like I said, the games are almost like they sort of not all of them, but like tip themselves like, I don't like this kind of style like of war games, but it works better here.
Yeah, I think they do that for gamers.
But he's still right.
You're still not, if you're not putting Tapestry on the table for your mom and dad, they're never gonna know what's going on. I think. I don't know. Halo in the chat said Tapestry is not really complex in learning, but in getting better at it, maybe. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe to me, I think they're heavy games. Anyway.
Well, they're definitely, there is, and I think we mentioned this in Red Rising, but in general, Stonemaier games tend to be point salads. You know, they tend to be a lot of different ways to get points. So that definitely, I guess, can help add to the complexity of being like, which way do I go? I guess it just doesn't feel...
There's a lot going on.
Right. It just doesn't feel like maybe some other, definitely in the 4X genre.
But Scythe, though, I still think, like Tapestry, you could make an argument for.
Yeah.
Scythe
no, I know, but
heavy.
hold on. Let me finish
I'm just saying, yeah.
The difference is I feel like some other 4X games I've played, there's a a reasonable chance or easy way that you could do a strategy that you can't come back from. I feel it's much harder in Scythe. And I think, to me, that makes it more accessible because you don't have to feel.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would agree with that necessarily. I mean that you can't come back to, but that's assuming you're like good at the game already. I think you still got. I feel like you still need experience, and you need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, you'll need experience for. I guess I just imagine that I've been more disheartened.
It's really how do you define accessibility? I guess
that is true.
There's different ways to interpret that.
You're very right. How do you decide talk about family game? Some families, the entire game could probably handle Scythe. Others, like my dad, probably their eyes gloss over for King of Tokyo. So,
yeah. Okay. Tuan also had another comment following up on that, though, that I want to read. That said, I agree that the game would likely sell better if it had a more accessible theme, which is one of the things that I said. However, this game was Jamie's passion project that was buried and then resurrected. He really wanted to design a Red Rising game and introduce others to the series. He's done the former, and according to Amazon stats, looks like he's accomplishing the latter. He also mentioned that the collector's edition, according to Jamie, will remain in print as long as there's a demand for it, just without the unique number on the box. So people hopefully will be able to get those collector's editions.
Right. I mean, that's what I said was probably one of the things I loved about this game was, there are a lot of novels out there I think people love that haven't been made 100 times into a movie or something. And these are the kind of things I would love to see given the chance to expand upon. Like seeing these cast of characters is still cool to me, even though I haven't read anything in the books. Like I said, oh, this is the villain, this is the hero, this is that. And I'm sure for you, you actually read the book, so you're like, they're making a new game. Let me read the book. Oh, this is actually a really interesting story. So that's definitely, I think, a big win in its column.
Yeah. There's a comment actually from Board Game Geek. Phil Hendrickson said, Jamie has hinted that the future could include expansions for Red Rising. Maybe he will do something like Catan, where each expansion adds another layer of depth to the game world. Then you might see the fleet track upgraded to include actions on an exploration or space battle sideboard. So I would be fully on board for that. I would love that. I think that would be awesome. Chris R. said, I like the character interaction in this game. However, as a fan of the books, it seems like this game holds back. Do you guys think that this is maybe because the book series is not finished yet? I don't think that's the reason. No, I don't think so. I think they did just want to make this a more accessible, broad view of the world.
As someone who has an extreme knowledge of the books, I do believe that as soon as the next book is released. No.
Fair enough. And Jay Plays asked if we would recommend this for a solo-only player, and also how did you find it in terms of randomness of the card draw and the impact it has on your ability to score points and pull off combos. I replied in this and I said I did play the solo and I liked it a bunch. I think it's actually probably a pretty good bet if you are looking for a solo-only experience. What did you think of the randomness? I thought it could definitely come up. It could definitely impact you, but for me, I didn't mind it so much. We talked about this a little bit on our podcast too, but
yeah, I do feel it can raise its ugly head every now and then. But for the most part, one, I don't know, just knowing that each thing's unique is fun. Two, it seems, even though I think there may be a couple cards that have the same ability. Like, it's really rare. But I feel like it's not too hard to pivot in this. I don't know about the single player mode.
Yeah.
It's really
Same
the
thing.
hardest. Like, finding some of those gold card names would be the most difficult thing. And even then, I don't know. I still had fun. Like, it would not be the worst thing in the world, even though I had that one time when I didn't know what to do with my hand game versus like one where I had set. But still, like, who's this person,
You do still also have stuff like the orange cards, which you can use as any name, or
Right.
some cards you can use as any color. So and you still might get unlucky and not see those either, but they do try to put stuff like that so you can work
It
around
doesn't feel as bad as maybe some other things like I could think of where I'm like, why didn't that show up or something?
Yeah, Hoser 40K says he's awaiting our Star Wars retheme of Red Rising. So I guess
Right,
now,
you brought that up.
I don't know how you would do that though, because there's 12 colors included in the game, and I'm not sure how you split up all the characters of Star Wars into all those.
Jedi, Sith, Imperial Trooper, Rebel.
But aren't Jedi rebels? Sometimes.
Well, maybe that way, like Luke gets extra points if he's with a rebel because he's helping them.
All right, we'll work on it. Stay tuned. All right, we had a couple of top 10 lists in the last couple of months, and we're gonna take a look at what other people suggested that we didn't mention in our videos. First up, deck building games. Real big one. You can go back and watch our videos if you want our full list, but here's what other people had to say. There was a big comment from John Ryan, which included a lot that I saw throughout, that included a lot of good titles. Tyrants of the Underdark, Arctic Scavengers, Quest for El Dorado, Helionox, Shadow Rift, Study in Emerald, Valley of the Kings, Puzzle Strike, a lot of different games there. Kieran Ranger also mentioned Quest for El Dorado. That's one I think I considered, but ultimately didn't go with, that I do enjoy. Do like Quest for El Dorado.
It's not my favorite, but I would never say no to it. I mean, I probably say no to no. I would never say no to any deck builder.
At this point,
I have played.
Do you want to play a game, please?
Study in Emerald. I played the second edition. I have the first, but then they announced the second edition that changes. I don't think I played it with you, Jonathan.
Study in Emerald?
Yeah, did I play with you? I can't
Pretty sure we reviewed it and did
Okay.
how to play and.
Well, then it's been so long.
Yeah,
it's been a long time since I played that one, and it definitely, I feel like it needs the right group. It doesn't feel nearly, but it's a cool, fun idea.
I don't remember it being a deck building game. That's how long it's been since I played it.
Well, yeah, the first thing comes to me is more of a social deduction game, because it was really like you had the two teams. You had the people who were Shaglums or with
that wasn't. I feel like that wasn't really the forefront either. It was like a weird mixture of different genres.
Arctic. I also got Arctic Scavenger, but it just never got the chance to hit the table.
Yeah. If we respond to every game, we're going to be here for the next 3 hours.
No, I'm just saying those are the two I knew.
Okay. Geo Arca said Great Western Trail is my favorite, although I'm not sure everyone will agree on calling it a deck building game.
It's fine. We're getting the next edition.
Yeah.
Or even one.
Lotter Winner said, you almost got it right with putting Aeon's End. We both had it at number 2. Said next year we will see Aeon's End in the number 1 spot. I really recommend you try the new last 2 Aeon's End releases. Exhibition mode takes the game up a level.
I mean, especially with this new Gloomhaven's Legacy, or I can't remember the exact name, finishing up the story. I mean, we got it, John.
No. Gravehold.
Gravehold, not Gloomhaven. Wow.
Very different game, not involved.
Oh, God. We're live, folks. I mean, we got to finish Bluvius and Shin's journey. You know, we're just going to play through them through the entire thing, even though I think that I'm pretty sure they said that would actually be a little overpowered.
I'm fine with that. Some people not as big of a fan. The Zilla commented, said Aeon's End Legacy was fun for the first half. The whole fractured crystals mechanic about halfway through absolutely ruined it. We lost every game after that and gave up on the whole campaign. Such a negative experience that we haven't played any Aeon's End games since. So this was a thing where cards in your deck would become less useful.
Yeah, and Jonathan can speak from experience because he was the one who got
it happened to me, and it was a bummer. But I guess we fought through it. It did. I get it though.
Look. I definitely agree, but I think part of it was because I wasn't, and inconveniently, I went the money engine. So even though you were the spell guy and you couldn't buy spells, usually I had ways to throw things at you pretty quickly.
Right.
So
right.
that definitely helps a lot. But yeah, that was probably the biggest thing of Aeon's End Legacy. And honestly, like, I would highly suggest, if you really didn't like it, like, make it so like you get a maximum of 4 fractured or something. You know, like, because that really, like, I get why they do it, and it's a challenge, but like, I saw Jonathan deal with, I think, not like all but one were fractured. So
wasn't
like,
always fun.
It's annoying because it's also, you know, what the other annoying thing about it too is, like, all right, I can buy 2 that can buy spells, or 3 that can't. Like you couldn't just be like, I have this much buying power. You had to actually.
I don't like doing math. All right.
Look, I can completely agree with that.
Let's run through some more deck building games people said. Ronthal said, I would have mentioned that Thunderstone, the original one, is also kind of the second grandfather of deck building alongside Dominions. It's a good shout out. Let's see. A Online mentioned Edge of Darkness, Dale of Merchants, Trains. Clinton Jeffrey said, favorite game of all time, Alf Siegert's Fantastica. Gotta look into that one.
I don't know that one.
I know Alf Siegert, but I don't know Fantastica. Mr. P said, can respect Dominion for the impact on the hobby, but couldn't get into it. Star Realms and Hero Realms are great, always a hit introducing to new players. And perhaps my favorite game with deck building is Hands in the Sea, a spiritual successor to A Few Acres of Snow. Not particularly well known, but I think it's fantastic.
I am curious, and I 100% agree with you on Dominion. Though, isn't Hero Realms a? Oh no, wait, I'm thinking a different game, and that's why I was like, is that a deck builder? I was thinking something else.
Since Star Realms was on your list, I hope it's a deck builder.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of Epic because they use this very similar terminology. I'm like, that's drafting. No, I was thinking wrong game.
All right, then we had our top 10 two-player games. And, of course, everyone had suggestions for these as well. Ribamus Prime. I mean, I don't know why Rib is in there, but sure. Said, it's never mentioned, but I feel classic Stratego is still one of the greatest two-player games. Doesn't get any love these days. Star Wars Rebellion is amazing. You have to play it on both sides. Stratego, I thought about Stratego. Honestly, I kind of thought about it. It's a good game. I like it.
I have not played it so long. I'm afraid to be like, is it this? No, I don't. That
it's. I mean, it's very old school. It's an old school type of game,
right?
But it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun.
No, I mean, definitely Star Wars is the we.
That's the white
There's
whale.
another reason why we need to actually be able to play with each other, because I feel like if we're doing something that takes, was it 3 hours?
I don't know if I'll probably never play that game, and it's fine. I just like looking at it on my shelf. Wildcard Photography mentions Skulk Hollow, which we have played. Says a fantastic asymmetric two-player game with one player as the small fox in race with a lot of little meeples, and the other player is a giant guardian.
Yeah, that one was on in a consideration.
I needed to put more into it. For me, I'm not sold on it yet.
I do. Just in general, I always love the Attack on Titan game. That 1v where the one is big and it becomes Shadow of the Colossus. It just is such a fun idea.
It's a great concept.
Definitely not overexplored.
BizCota77 said, I think you guys needed to also include this two-player game called Ashes Rise of the Phoenixborn. Also, like Magic the Gathering, plays longer and is more balanced, according to him.
I felt really bad because I felt like, I don't know if I can say anything with the new second edition out. Like I feel like I need to play that.
This is a case of I consider that as maybe also being a multiplayer game. We've played it with 3 and 4 players, and I don't know what the box count is or what the if we're going back to Arkham Horror, the thing of like how many sets do you need to buy to make that legal?
Right, like it's a 2-player from just the core set, but technically if you buy more.
But that's why I didn't think of it, is because I
just thought of it as I cannot experience it anymore, because that's to me like playing. It's like the difference between Arkham Horror and second and third almost.
I don't think they're that different. I don't think they're that different.
Right, but I guess in my head I just felt like it's still so big and be like.
But you can still say you still put Arkham Horror Second Edition on your best of all time, even though that game has been replaced.
Like I would separate.
You can still just say I like the second edition or the first edition. I mean.
Okay. Yeah. No. I guess that's true, but I just feel like.
Anyway,
I don't know.
It's a moot point.
It's just stupid semantics, but yes, Ashes deserves to be mentioned.
Oh, you're back.
There's a flicker a little earlier on my end.
It's a moot point because Board Game Geek says officially 2 to 4 players, so we were trying to look at only 2-player games. Another one I thought of along those lines was Imperial Settlers, which I feel like a lot of people really like as a 2-player game, but again, it fits more. Yeah.
That's always
that was our criteria.
Annoying thing with player count thing, because that opens a whole other Like if we included what are the best two-player games,
Right. That's a different list, I think. That's a very different list. Refresh Damon said, my number one would be Magic the Gathering, but my favorite format is draft, and that really requires at least 6. With that removed, I think it might be Arkham Horror LCG, if I want to rate it by the amount of money and time spent on the game.
No comment on how I would rate my list if that was how I rated it.
Well, it'd be very different with money versus time. Those would be two very different calculations. Has played with more than 2 players and thinks it's too long and grindy. So I guess they said their 2-player tastes align with yours, Will. And Pacey said, you allow Arkham Horror in the 2-player list, but not in the deck building list? I'm calling shenanigans. So a bit of controversy there.
Okay.
I don't know about that one.
I mean, I feel, I'll say this. I'm much more confident on what is and isn't a deck builder versus what is and isn't a 2-player.
We ruled it legal. Suspicious, but legal.
Yeah. You know what? It's just going back to comment before.
Yes.
Because I have played a full campaign and nearly a full of Arkham with 2 versus 3, Jonathan being the one in the 3rd-player one. It does add a bit more time, and I will say, though, the biggest thing is just with anything I don't even think it's just Arkham, just anything with a campaign. Each person you add, always just trying to align times you can all get together. Always is
that's a different time calculation you got to take into account. Yeah. One of the games that was on your list was Kapow. Now from White Wizard, which is a dueling dice game where you can change the faces of the dice themselves. And I made a comment saying something along the lines of, I think that's the only game I know that does that. So, of course, 20 people said, you're wrong. So, note taken among one I saw a bunch of, including Brandon Graham, said, for a game with customizable dice, check out Dice Forge. Everyone I taught it to loves it. So Dice Forge was a big one. A lot of people mentioned that does the same thing. And apparently there's a couple others out there too. What do I know?
Well, I still stick by Kapow being a great one.
All right, I'll allow you to stick with that. And we also, one of the games we didn't play that a lot of people mentioned was Targi. Bo Brenner said, maybe you guys could get Targi and do a playthrough or first reaction of the game together. Let us know if you want to see Targi. Targi. We talked about it on the show. Patrons mentioned it as well.
Okay.
So, yes, at some point your brain was aware of the game's existence, although it may have left now. So a lot of good suggestions in addition to our own.
There's so many rules and things I need to know. Things got to go.
I mean, we haven't played it, so, you gotta upgrade your RAM. I don't know why I haven't done that.
Yeah, no, this whole thing is not wired very well, and it won't take updates or firmware. It's really bad.
That's a shame.
If I can get a new graphics card, that would help.
Yeah, well, you can't. A few more. Let's do some more questions and comments. Of course, we are big fans of leader games, and there are games like Root and recently Fort. And Kalega311 said, I wonder how many practical 4-letter words there are before leader and next move run out of words. How many do you think there are? I mean, we can't go to the dirty ones.
all I know is when they use the word crit, we better be involved.
Oh man, now that's their RPG, I suppose. Of course, they already have Root, the RPG coming, but yeah, I don't know. Something tells me I think they probably are pretty good. They probably have a lot they could choose from.
Now, I challenge them to make a game titled Dice that have no dice in it.
Okay. That's up to them if they'll accept that challenge or not, I suppose. We reviewed the Dominion... Not Dominion. They mentioned Dominion. We reviewed the Evolution app. The North Star Games, Evolution video game, I should say, really. And Paul Hamrick said, I haven't played the physical game, but just bought the iPad app. And he wishes that the log was more robust, as in the log that tells you what has occurred on other players' turns, so you can look back previously and see a history of what's happened, and mentions the Dominion Online.
How did I miss that?
Mentions the Dominion Online web app as being great, as pure text, but it makes it very clear what's gone on and in what order. What do you think about having a log? How important is that to you in a digital game of having a history?
I mean, in particular, when it's the what's the mode where you're not all playing at once, the time
asymmetric
mode.
one.
The asymmetric, I think that's probably a pretty big deal. Be like, what did he do? Because you didn't check in for 24 hours or something. So yeah, I can't believe I didn't think about that. I feel.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't think, don't beat yourself up about it. I think it's fine. I don't like that wouldn't impact my opinion of the game personally, but it is nice to have. I don't know that it's not something I think about, to be honest with you. I think you have to have a more analytical mind that you are going over thinking about those things more and more.
Well, it depends. Look, it depends on the game, and there's certain tells.
you have leaned back in your chair. If anyone's wondering why Will is much smaller than me now.
But there's certain tells, like if someone puts a lot of, if you were like, all right, there's only 5 food in the watering hole, and you know it's because Will put in a -9. Odds are it's because he's either played an evolution card that's like he doesn't have to eat from there, or he's going predator. So I could see like things like that being like, all right, who's the one who played that?
But I guess it's like in real life, I don't have a log.
Well, yeah, because you usually see everyone play, like,
But I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I'm not.
And also, you could be like, "What did you play?"
Not that I'm. I don't know. I sound like I'm like against logs. No, I think that's a great a feature to have. Just not something I look at. Ryan Middleton had a question. Asked, "What do you make of So we know that Fantasy Flight now has the rights to Dead of Winter." And apparently, I don't know, I didn't see this. Apparently, I guess they made a Dead of Winter post or something on Instagram, and they used the hashtag card game and asked what we think of that. I don't know is there speculation that maybe they're making a Dead of Winter card game, some kind of a spin-off or something?
I somehow missed this, and I've not heard of it.
But thoughts? Nope, I guess we don't have any.
I feel like. Once again, if we hear Fantasy Fighting card game, we're thinking LCG.
Oh, I actually wasn't, but I guess go ahead and think it.
That's the first thing that came to mind for me. And the problem is, I feel like, I mean, if they do it correctly, it'd be really cool because it'd stand out from all the other LCGs. But if for a core part of Dead of Winter is that there, is or is not, I think there always is. I can't remember exactly.
There's not always necessarily a trader mechanic.
Okay, yes.
But there is a mechanic where everyone is always out for themselves with their personal goals.
Right. The point being that, there's tension between the players instead of just being a fully co-op game. Like, maybe there's a way you can do it.
It could be competitive.
It could be. That's another thing. I would really be curious to see them actually, but Fantasy Fight doesn't like to take risks. But try to make a semi-co-op LCG, because that would be a first.
That'd be interesting. Probably not that hard. I feel like you could relatively easily, like, for instance, take Arkham and just pretend now you have an extra card that says you also have to do this.
Right. Just remember that, like, you really got to make sure you do it right, because, like, there's a difference between Battlestar, which is a fantastic, hidden trader kind of thing, and then the hidden trader Mansions of Madness scenario. Yeah. Which I thought was terrible.
Yeah.
So,
well, yes, I would appreciate it if they did it well. Yes, I suppose that goes.
No, that's what I'm. And the other thing is, like, remember our beginning we talked about Legend of the Five Rings, how the packs can unbalance things.
Well,
how would that work then?
I don't think. Yeah, that's why I don't think trader. If you're doing semi co-op, I don't think there should be a trader, especially with Dead of Winter. You're probably going to do more like an Arkham thing with storylines, but personal goals I think would be a good way to go, as just you risk messing it up for the whole group, but you want your extra points or you want your whatever the thing is. Maybe, I don't know, but I at first I just thought maybe what if they just did a standalone Dead of Winter the card game that was just a lighter...
I mean, I think that would be probably,
I don't know. I don't know that that'd be interesting, I guess. It seems maybe unnecessary, but LCG makes more sense, I think.
Well, like I said, as long as I keep that core value of that not fully cooperative nature, whether it is because of a trader or, as you said, Jonathan, the selfish goals.
They do have a lot of characters in that game that you could make decks out of.
Mm-hmm. Well, I already know who I'm making. It's the dog.
Yeah,
You all know
Sparky.
that's the only one that.
Matt D commented about the Ticket to Ride Europe Deluxe Edition that they announced. I think it's like the 10th anniversary, something like that. Says, looks lovely, but my standard edition is fine. Do you guys ever buy special editions to replace your standard editions, or do you only do that for games you don't have yet? Or do you just not buy deluxe editions at all? I actually can't. I have bought second editions of games, but I can't think of a time I've bought a deluxe edition of a game I already own, or even honestly that I don't own.
Only, I mean, top of my head, ignoring Magic or any TCG, the only thing I could think of is Suburbia, and I didn't buy it. I kept the original edition. This is before we found out about second.
You mean
edition.
the only one you can think of that you
There would be a deluxe version to
that you can upgrade? Oh, really?
No, wait.
Well, Ticket to Ride,
no.
or no, I guess you don't have Ticket to Ride.
No, well, I have the old German version.
Other versions, yeah.
Evolution, I bought the upgrade kits and stuff. Usually that's the thing. They usually come with, they usually is, here's an upgrade kit, and I'm like,
well, I guess,
I'll buy that.
Yeah, that's certainly common for like the second
And it's
edition.
cheaper.
This is more of the like, everything is literally the same. It's just fancier components.
Yeah, I can't think of, I
They don't
can't
do
even
it that
think of many
often.
games that
it's for the ones like Catan and the.
You know
for
what?
The
There
huge
is
sellers.
There is one that I have done it with just
Yeah.
recently.
Oh, what's that?
Komet.
Even that though is new mechanics, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. But I mean that's the closest.
Yeah.
It's usually the problem is it's usually because I feel like the game has mechanics, or they have an upgrade kit.
It would have to be a game that I just really, really, really loved, and most of them I don't think have done that. The one I just thought of that's doesn't really count, and I also haven't bought it, but I have considered it.
I thought you were gonna say Sentinels because we just talked about that.
No, but again, a second edition. It's different because it has new rules, new cards.
Does it? I thought it was just mostly just card art and stuff, not.
Oh no! I mean, they definitely showed. At the very least, it's streamlined to the extent that like the text is different and keywords
It's not
are
just
different.
okay. So they're okay. Never mind.
Yeah, no, it's not a reskin. No, it's a new game. To some, we don't know to what extent, but I was gonna say Codenames, the XL versions. I have been very close and thought about if we weren't in a pandemic, I might have been more tempted to do it of buying those with that's the same game just with bigger cards. So if you count that as a deluxe edition.
I mean, there's another one I could do too, but once again, it's significantly different. It's a 2-player version of the game.
Yeah, not the same.
I can't think of too many. It's not even like I wouldn't do it. It's just I can't even think of that many times when that has cropped up for me. I think is part of it too.
Fair enough. Raphael Arias in the chat asked if we have a favorite foreign game, as in a non-English board game. Do you have a favorite?
I don't know if they count, but the Oink games are pretty fun. Like we played a couple of those, but they brought them over to English. So does that count now?
Yeah,
I feel like this is the same time when we had that argument in the Blockbuster game of foreign movies.
We won't get into that. But yeah, the Oink that's Japanese Oink games. They later reprinted it, but we played the Polish version of Mysterium back in the day. That was pretty fun. But yeah, I can't think of any specifically like that aren't printed in America.
Yeah, more often than not, they either or an English rule book that. Yeah, I can't.
But good question. Let us know what yours are if you have ones to suggest, or maybe there's something we're not thinking of. To finish us off, we posted a couple of polls in our YouTube community section. If you're following us there, you might have seen those and voted in those. And they had some interesting results that I think are worth talking about. We asked if people are more co-op or competitive gamers, and the results are interesting. So, of all the voters, 36% said they like co-op games more, 26% said they like competitive games more, and 38%, so by a narrow margin, the highest voting, said they like both equally. What do you think about it? I guess it doesn't surprise me too much that co-op has a higher percentage than competitive. It seems like that's definitely a big trend these days.
Yeah, I just it's a lot easier. I mean, I brought this up plenty of times before. If someone who isn't already immersed in board games some way or another to sit down at a table with like, look, you're not playing against me, so you don't have to feel like you're being forced into someone who knows a lot more than you. We are working together.
And even if you're on the same level, I do generally I would rather be on your team than be trying to.
Well, I mean, everyone wants to be on my team.
Just general you. Let's be clear. And so there's some comment. Michelle M said, "My husband's winning streak is close to 100%, so co-ops are a big hit with me. Rather work with hubby than against him." So for some people, this is an issue of family strife. And Paul R. II said, "I don't mind losing in a competitive board game. I feel purposely disheartened when I lose in a co-op or solo game." So for him, it's the opposite. He actually feels worse losing in a co-op for some reason than in a competitive.
I think part of it is
I have a theory.
I have a theory. Yeah, this is it's not one I feel or share as much, but like losing, like if we're playing a game and I were to lose to you, Jonathan, it's like, well, I lost because I'm up against a human.
Right.
Who can read me and adjust. But if you lose to a game, it's like, well, what's going on? And more importantly, a lot of campaign games are cooperative. And I think you agree with me, Jonathan. It feels really bad when you're like, we lost this. Time to play the scenario again.
Yeah, I'm a very much a fan of games that don't do that. Yeah, that's maybe a sidetrack. The other thing, we had a poll asking if people enjoy videos or playthroughs of legacy campaign games, or if they don't watch them because they don't want to see spoilers. And it was a very even split. 51% said they don't like to see it. 49% said they're fine with watching them. Some comments maybe that will give us some insight. I am Raleigh1 said, "I can watch only if I have an interest in the game but don't plan to buy it. My game group doesn't want to play King's Dilemma or Clank Legacy, so I'll watch that." Earn Brew said, "I have no game group, so it would be nice to see them played through by someone just so I can experience it." And Ori said, "I'm fine with watching the first couple of games to decide if it's for me or not, and then if it is, they would go and buy it."
I think that makes sense. This is always something I wanted to put this poll up because, I see video game playthroughs all the time. And I know for me, when I see something, for example, this is not an issue now, but like God of War, I don't want to watch that because I know I'm going to play that, know?
Yeah.
Versus something like
Fortnite.
Fortnite or something, you're like, sure, maybe you don't want to know whatever the mechanics are, but in the end, it's not really like, it doesn't feel like the kind of thing I could really spoil myself with kind of thing. So I was curious to see how people felt on that legacy train where, knowing what's ahead makes a significant difference, It
sounds like, there's like, they like it within reason, depending on their circumstances, I guess. Yeah, I think we might also I think it might be kind of a generational thing a little bit. We're not that old, but I do think people, Twitch streaming is such a thing now that like I agree with you. I don't want to watch someone else play a video game unless it's like someone I really think is fun, and it's probably you said, non-narrative.
Honestly, even then, like there are certain people I'm watching mostly just to hear them talk, not to watch the game as much.
But I think for a lot of people now, they are so used to that they don't really think about spoilers. They're just like, yeah, I'll watch that game and maybe I'll go buy it, or I don't know. It's not as big of a deal maybe. And board games are just different too, because especially with like a multiplayer game, there's so many more. You don't know which cards you're going to draw, what the other players are going to do, and which stickers, maybe they'll have a completely different choice that changes a legacy game. Whereas like a video game is probably going to be the same story for them, unless it's like an RPG maybe or something like that. But I think you could it's easier to watch a legacy game and still be surprised a little bit when you play it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
No. Well, at the very least, it seems it doesn't hurt to maybe be like, we'll do like just for us, and let us know in the comments of this or anywhere else, of like, maybe we'll just do the first 2 or 3 so you can see what the game's like.
Well, it's always, if you don't want to keep watching, stop. For people who like it, they can keep watching us, and we can still have fun and play it for people who like it or whatever it is. A lot of people maybe already played it too, and
That's true. They want to see what choices we make and stuff.
Yeah, so there's merit to it, I think. Another question here from the chat from Tuckleberry Finn asked what our thoughts are on Kickstarters for games you know will be sent to retail. The new Terraforming Mars would cost me $50 to back, but I assume I could get it for $40 or less after delivery. By the way, we're going to wrap up soon, so if you have any final questions, comment them now in the chat. But what do you think? Games that are going to retail? There was something recently, I can't remember it, maybe it's for the best that I don't name names, but there was definitely a game recently that I was like, maybe it was the Ares Expedition, the Terraforming Mars card game, where I thought, I could back that, but I know I'm going to be able to buy it. There's no reason, I don't even see any cool exclusives or anything.
Well, yeah, my Kickstarter rules still apply. Does it have Kickstarter exclusives? That are they mechanically important?
Are they? Yeah.
Is the game going to be Kickstarter only or not? And what is the price difference? Hypothetically speaking, let's say if I did the Kickstarter, it's $50 versus $100 retail. Probably even if it's nothing exclusive, probably going to do the Kickstarter. That's a $50 difference. But let's say afterwards. We'll take the example from the comments. It's 50 to back it, 40 in some places, but maybe 60 on their site. So you have a range. You're not, and you might not be guaranteed to get the 40 as much. It may go up to 60. I'm willing to gamble. I don't know, that $10 difference without the exclusives sometimes, unless I really feel the need, usually because I need it to review for this, because I think people are going to talk about it. Because I don't. Going back to trading cards, I don't want to have to feel pressured about buying stuff. I want to buy it when I want to buy it.
That's
not because I feel guilty about not buying.
A shocking statement from a huge Magic the Gathering fan. but I feel the same way.
Oh, well, no, that's why I played Eternal format, Jonathan, so I don't have to feel as bad anymore.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's just that Magic has learned how to make me feel guilty about purchases, just not nearly as bad as other things.
Yeah, but I don't really have if you're asking about from a moral perspective. I mean, the thing, it's been said before, and I think it's true, that Kickstarter largely now is a marketing platform more than it is a funding platform. Mm-hmm. And is it a little bit disappointing that that's changed? Maybe a little bit, but I don't begrudge the companies for using it, and I don't really have much of a problem with it.
Some of them I do.
I don't know. I guess at this point I'm just like, that's what it's for. It's like, if they're going to make more money and it's better for them to do it and people are going to back it, they should do it. I don't know why.
It's not simply using it. It's how they use it. That's what bothers me. It's more like when it's like, guess what? This Kickstarter is only around for less than 7 days is great, because it's usually right after we film our Kickstarter, and we're like, well, we got to refilm to add this one. And also when there's a lot of exclusive stuff, because that just feels like it's really playing against my psyche instead of just trying to make a good game.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's a separate issue. I think the exclusive stuff can be bad. Although a lot of times I'm like, if it were that good, you should have put it in the game. But again, that's another issue. So I don't know. Yeah, it depends. It depends. Sometimes I wish there. I always like seeing indie stuff more that actually needs the Kickstarter.
Right.
But it is what it is.
And I do I'm sure if it came to a point, but right now I don't. Granted, maybe our last Kickstarter negates what I'm about to say, but I don't think we made it to a point where there's only the big things.
Certainly not only, but and I think people will say, oh, they take attention away from the smaller ones that need the money. I think that maybe is true, but I think it balances out with also the amount of people who maybe are Marvel fans, saw Marvel United on Kickstarter, and maybe they never heard of Kickstarter before, and maybe now they're going to see another project that from a smaller company they wouldn't have backed before. The same way that I'm a fan of the Criterion Collection Blu-rays, and every once in a while they put out Fast Times at Ridgemont High or whatever that's a very popular movie, but that allows them to fund all these small foreign obscure movies. Like, I think you need those big projects to also support the little ones sometimes.
Yeah, it's a balance.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's our thoughts. That's a good little thoughts on Kickstarter, and those are all our thoughts on comments and stuff from the past couple of months. So many topics to discuss.
Nope, there we go.
So many things. Don't worry about it. You're back. So we thank you for watching. If you're seeing this in the future, you can comment still below and add even more thoughts onto this one. Although we probably won't include them in a future video because you're just too late at that point. But still, we'll reply to you in the comments and we'll read them eagerly. And thanks to everybody who was in the chat hanging out with us, as always. Thanks to our patrons on Patreon, which you can check out if you want to hear more stuff from us. And if you want to buy the shirt that Will's wearing, you can go to our merch store, which is also linked in the description down below. Anything else? Want to say goodbye? Sign us off.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, whether it's right now live or in the future. And love to hear these comments. We're going to try to do more of those polls because they're very interesting to see your guys' responses on that. And, you know, whether you agree or disagree, we will continue streaming, whether it's legacy games or some video games. Like Jonathan is still going through the entire Resident Evil series. And God bless him. He had quite a stream it was this week.
Yeah. I'm still reeling. I'm still in recovery. Go check that out. Like and subscribe so you can see all our polls and updates and all that kind of fun stuff. And thank you again. My name is Jonathan.
I'm Will.
This was Roll for Crit, and you are the Meeple Gallery, and you've just been meepled. That's our new sign off. That's our new sign off. Bye.